Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in the hands of our capable city clerk, Ms. Lisa Carroll.
This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, October the 21st. We have approval of minutes from September 24th and September 30th.
Any issues, anyone? All right.
Appeals, we have requests for waiver of the noise ordinance on October the 25th from 5 p.m. till 10 p.m. on Fleetwood Drive.
All right. Okay.
Public hearings, today is the public hearing to consider the proposed conditional use permit for property located at 2316 Hillwood Drive West. Public hearing to consider the modification of a previously approved PUD for a property located at 550 Providence Park Drive East. Okay. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Mary Palmer requests for annual Boynton Day to honor Chris Boynton, who was accused and hung for the murder of Nathaniel Frost. Lakeisha Clements comments about the revocation of Fat Tuesday Sports Bar. Apostle Valina Green canceled. Ordinances held over. 52046, adopt chapter 52, real property maintenance and enforcement, article 8, vacant structure registry for Henry Aaron Loop.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
I don't know that we distributed all the changes over to y'all, but I think it's certainly something we should probably talk about, the various changes that we came up with. And I'll get these distributed out to everyone, but I wanted to run through a few of these just so everybody knows kind of what they're looking at when you look at it. The intent of the changes were to remove some of the ambiguities within the ordinance so that it's not so subjective to folks. And then also to, instead of requiring every property owner within the Henry Aaron Loop to just register on their own, we now have shifted it to make in this amendment, the city, if they identify a potentially vacant building, they will then place notice on that building. And then once notice is given, then it'll be up to that property owner to show that they are in fact not vacant, or they meet some exemption, or that they are vacant, and then they need to be placed on the registry and pay the registry, bill on that. So it changes the obligation. We removed several sections where it said the reasonable determination of the code official. We struck through much of that. I'll get all of this to y'all. I'm sorry you hadn't gotten it. There were some last minute snafus with trying to get it, all together. One other big thing was the fee schedule. And I think it's something worth discussing. When you get commercial structures without any residential units, you go to a minimum amount that you will be charged, or a per square foot amount that it's in there. Currently, for the first year, it's $1,000 or 5 cents per square foot. And that puts a 20,000 square foot building owner in the same category as a 1,000 square foot building owner. And those two don't pose the same sort of public safety risk or the same amount of vacancy. So we've restructured that, and you really have two options. And here we made it where it's 1,000 square foot is the smallest amount, but then 10 cents per square foot for the square footage amount, which then equals it out. So a 10,000 square foot building owner is going to pay the same as a 1,000 square foot building owner versus a 1,000 square foot building owner paying the same as a 20,000 square foot building owner. That's not a fair deal. But we can structure either way. We can make the fees less, or we can make the fees higher and come out with a similar outcome. I'll distribute these all to you guys, and maybe we can get a vote. But if not, we can hold it obviously a week if necessary. Sorry it took so long to get through these. This is sort of a 10-pager that is not, easy to get everybody on the same page.
Council, y'all would like to hold this over for a week, or especially if you haven't looked at the new language?
I don't see a need for it. I mean, I've read through all of it.
Okay.
The only thing that I didn't agree with is the language on 5 and 10 cents. It's not clear if you're 5 cents up to 1,000 square feet, 10 cents for each additional 1,000 square feet, or if it's 10 cents on a larger building per total total square footage.
So it would apply total square footage to the greater of. So the way it's structured currently is 1,000 square foot. You'll never pay less than $1,000. You'll never pay less than $1,000. But if your square foot calculation at 5 cents per square foot exceeds $1,000, you will pay that greater amount.
So it should be, the wording should be 5 cents up to $1,000.10 for each additional 1,000 square feet.
No, it's not per 1,000 square foot. It's just based on your square footage amount.
So you'll charge them 10 cents if the building's over how many square feet. So that's the catch in the language. You know, it's got to be a defined parameter to get the additional 10 cents. Where does it start?
It starts from step one, and that's when you meet that minimum threshold. So I'll break it down to you this way, just the current way it's written. If you have a 1,000 square foot building, okay, you're going to pay $1,000. Okay, if you have a 10,000 square foot building, you're going to pay $1,000. If you have a 20,000 square foot building, you're going to pay $1,000. So it's because 5 cents times 20,000 square foot is still just $1,000. So we tried to break that out in a different way.
My statement is if the building's bigger, then at the onset of the $1,000 at 1,000 square feet for each additional 1,000 square feet, you charge them 10 cents.
Right, well, that's something we could certainly discuss. I'm not saying I necessarily have an objection
What is
to it. I was just trying to stay within what
10
what was.
times 20,000? What is that? So big. That's an additional $2,000 on top of the 1,000. I mean, additional 1,000, correct? Additional 1,000 on top of 1,000. If it reads like that, it's just.
Yeah, that's how the
$1,000.
amendment reads.
Huh?
That's how the amendment reads, is $1,000 or an additional 10 cents
So we're saying the same thing.
or 10 cents. That's right. Here, I'll let you read through it. But if y'all want to hold it, I'm okay with that. If y'all want to let me get this to you and make the decision in between meetings on what you want to do, I'm okay with that as well.
Chief Barber.
I think they probably wanted to hold.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because of this, fundamentally, I think we're okay. But we just got this either yesterday evening or this morning, and would like a little bit of time to review it, and make sure everybody's clear.
The language needs to read absolutely. I mean, I
It
understand what
does,
you're trying to do. But I mean, the way I've normally seen that is normally a certain amount up to $1,000 per square feet, an additional amount for each additional 1,000 square feet above a certain dollar amount. So that the wording needs to be absolute, so there's no confusion.
I
I
agree.
like to pass it though. Like to pass it, if we can't pass it today, with someone getting some language between now and 10:30 that works.
There's a lot of changes in here, and I'd hate to just rush through it and change it. It's a
Right.
10-pager, and it's got real implications to real people's property. And I think it's worthwhile when you pass an ordinance this big to spend the time you need to get the thing right, so we're not going and modifying or figuring out we got to
Agreed.
snap it.
Did you get the last stuff that I sent you?
I did.
Okay.
But that came late. I didn't. It was hard to read. You and I can get together after this and discuss that.
Just-
1 week?
Yeah, 1 week,
How does that work?
Vice President
Yeah.
and penned in Woods.
Just one
Attorney.
question. Yeah, just one question when you were talking about placing the notice on the buildings.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that a paper notice that you're going to put on the buildings?
Well, so let me see if I can find that section. There are 2 different things laid out here. They will put a notice on the door, but then they will also send mail as well,
Send it by
first
mail as
class.
well.
And then there's a section in here that deals with certified mail as well.
Yeah,
as well.
okay.
It's almost just like our nuisances.
Okay, yeah, just want to make sure, that it actually gets to them, yes. Okay. That was it.
Penn, Woods.
So what I was going to say is, we've talked through some of these, but it is a great idea to hold it over because in no way, shape, or form do we intend to raise the price
Okay.
on what we're dealing. So we understand basically what we're saying, but we want to make sure absolutely that the public understands that the numbers we talked about with the stakeholders and the pricing, it's not being raised. We're actually talking about leveling it out. And while we may understand it in principle, it is a good idea to talk this out beforehand and every council person see it and then us be able to go back through the nuances. As far as the notice is concerned, that's a little bit more onerous on the staff. We understand that that's a policy decision, not a legal one. So I'll stay far afield of that. But just want to make sure that we have the time to not only get this to you all, get Councilman Reynolds' changes to you all, but also have a time for your stakeholders to see it and understand what we're doing and not doing, and not raising the price on any of the stakeholders that we've talked to previously.
I had Mr. Carbo and he sat down this morning, he and I did, and we got red line sort of created for it to go down as well, just depending on what anybody wants to do. And that would be striking the fee schedule number 3 and modifying number 2 to be 4 or greater units.
All right.
I didn't hear anything back if y'all have any objection to that, but we can talk after this.
All right, 1 week.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 64049, consider the proposed modification of a previously approved PUD for property located at 4350 Moffett Road. 64050, consider rezoning property located at 2602, 2610, 2612, 2614, 2616 Old Shell Road, and 1057 and 107 Item Avenue from R1 and B2 to B2. 64051, consider an amendment to the Downtown Development District Regulating Plan to rezone property located at 250 St. Francis Street from T5.1 to T5.2. 88052, ordinance deeming certain property not now needed for public or municipal purposes and authorizing the sale thereof, 165 South Dearborn Street. 88053, ordinance donating certain property to the city's affordable housing program and authorizing option to lease thereof eastern portion of 1050 Baltimore Street. CIP resolutions held over 211297, authorized contract with Gaines Utility Construction Company for sidewalks along Dolphin Island Parkway. 211298, authorized contract with J. Payne Organization for CIP Hillsdale Senior Center renovations. Resolutions held over 091256, authorized revision of ADECA Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Response Budget Allocation. 081013, approved purchase order to All Tech Industries for aerial truck. 081305, approved purchase order to Chevrolet of Watsonville National Auto Fleet. 081309, approved purchase order to Detector Kim for 2 spectrometers. 081310 through 081312 is approving a purchase order to Empire Truck Sales. 081314, approved purchase order to Limbaugh Motors. 081316, approved purchase order to MHC Truck Leasing. 081319, 1320, approved purchase order to Parish Tractor Company. 081322, approved purchase order to Port City Trailers. 081323, approved purchase orders to Samsung Equipment Company. 081326, approved purchase order to Software Company for annual renewal of intelligence management software. 081327, approved purchase order to Stivers Ford Lincoln. 081328 through 1330, approved purchase order to Sun South. 081331 and 1332, approved purchase order to Truck Equipment Sales. 081335, approved purchase order to Vector Solutions for annual renewal of personnel training, qualification, evaluation, and equipment inspection software. 081336, approved allocation for the City of Mobile Housing Improvement Plan Enterprise Fund. 091337 and 1338, transferring capital reserve funds and close out inactive capital accounts and transfer funds from capital project CO 116 to capital project DIP Community Center project. 211339, authorized contract with Benjamin Victor Studios to design, model, cast, finish, deliver, and oversee installation of a sculpture of Jimmy Buffett for the National Maritime Museum. 211340, authorized contract with Bill Smith Electric for emergency generator. 211341, authorized contract with Zelco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for telephone service and equipment. 211342, authorized contract with C. Thornton for miscellaneous drainage repairs, districts 1 through 7. 211344, authorized contract with Volkert for construction, engineering, and inspection services for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue Complete Streets Project. 251345, accept temporary construction easements for drainage repairs for Tolman's Spring Branch. 371346, revoke the business license at 1608 St. Stephen's Road. 6013,
Oh,
okay.
Carol,
I asked a question earlier this morning as to what our capabilities are and what we could and can't do. I asked the administration to provide a somewhat curve as to the heightened times of activity to see if we could either limit the hours that the business was open or request that they close at a certain time. Beyond that time, legally, I wanted to know if it was something other than we could do other than just all out revoke the business license. That question should be, it's a section of city code that was given, but the question is how far can we go? So I wish somebody could answer that for me right now.
Mr. President. So the council has a lot of leeway on what it can do from revoking to suspending. The suspension can be for a week to 30 days to 90 days. And the code section also gives the council the right to add conditions, add security, change hours, things of that nature. So the discretion and authority is pretty widespread, pretty wide.
So depending on what that curve says, then that would allow maybe a short-term suspension or a moderate suspension with the return with the hours adjusted against the curve of activity. So I would need to see that curve of activity before 10:30 to make a recommendation.
Vice President Dan Wood.
Yeah, what William just said, that's what I was thinking too. Some sort of temporary sort of suspension to perhaps make some changes in their hours of operation and how they do things in order to curb some of the issues that we have been hearing about and seeing. I mean, if that's a possibility, that could prevent us from, the all-out closure, if that was, doable, of course.
Woods.
So I definitely think, obviously, the ability to operate a business, the ability to fulfill dreams that you have for a business or really to extra, that's key to this country. It's key to every right that we have. So I definitely, when weighing this decision of whether to, revoke a business license, to me, that's weighs very heavily on me. After conversation with some of y'all, I know that I do believe it kind of in recent history or most recent history, only one license has been revoked, and that was due to some pretty hard situation and circumstances. That being said, Mr. Carbo, and this might be a question for the administration. Do we know at the moment, obviously, last week in the testimony, if we want to call it that, ABC was notified, and they came out and I believe investigated or took a look at it. Do we know if they have a current ABC license, I guess, at the moment? And if so, this is the body, are we the body that would be able to suspend a liquor license or revoke a liquor license? And then also to Mr. Carroll's point, can we say, based on the data that Mr. Carroll requested, we have every right to say your business can't operate past the hour of midnight or 11 p.m. or do we have that authority, I guess?
So the ABC board has the authority to revoke the license, but in order to get the license, they have to have the council's approval. So I haven't heard that they have revoked that license. So as far as I know, they still have that license. As far as the conditions, it's pretty wide open. You can set times, hours of operation. You can set security plans. They need to do X, Y, Z. So you can put those types of conditions on the, you can suspend them and then say, meet these conditions and then it'll be reinstated. Or you can say, meet these conditions within a certain period of time and we won't suspend you. So you have a lot of flexibility about how you want to handle that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Penn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with my colleagues. I think it's very vital. I think since I've been on the council, if I'm mistaken, we only suspended one business license. And I just want to make sure we follow the same standards going forward. We want to make sure that if we suspend, like what are the standards? Is it, that was a severe case, and we can disagree, but we also want to protect our neighbors. So what can we put in place to make sure the residents feel safe? And I heard, Mr. Carbo, you stated that we can't put certain things in place. And I heard people weren't towing the cars. If you come downtown Mobile and your car is parked, you getting towed. It's just simple. Most people stop parking if their car is towed. I think it's certain things that we could put in place to protect the neighbors and figure it out. But I would love to see the information requested by Councilman Carroll before a decision is made, because I just want to make sure that we follow the same standard anytime going forward if we ever have to suspend a business license. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, there's suspension and there's revocation. So
Right.
we're talking suspend right now with the possibility of putting in some conditions that they could meet, not totally revoking.
Revoking,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if
So-
not, Matt.
And if not, then
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 revocation.
revocation.
But guys, you got to remember right now, you got to remember this. Nobody in this city should live in fear in their own homes of what's happening outside their door based on somebody else's business or actions. Your rights begin where ends where somebody else's begins. And you got to remember, we can't, impose on those. So there has to be a consequence for the actions that have been happening and ongoing in a continuous basis. So we have to do something that will determine based on the curve that we get.
And to that point too, you're absolutely right. Your rights begin where someone else's ends. But I guess, and everyone has the right to be safe in their own home. I ain't gonna lie to you. If I was living near a business that was acting like this, I'd probably be pretty mad as well. But that being said, though, I definitely don't want to set any sort of precedent or want to be very thoughtful about this because, what does a future council look like? Definitely don't want some arbitrary revoking businesses just because 5 people got mad at you 1 week or something. So I definitely, that's a fine line. And I definitely want to make sure that everything we do, there's a process, procedure, and they're giving overwhelming ability to correct themselves before anything's done. So that's just where I stand.
Lastly, I do have a question, if you can answer this. Listen to the testimony last week. I know it was like 200 calls that came between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 o'clock a.m. My question is, was there any arrests, especially inside of the club, or anyone get arrested inside of the clubs, period? All of those calls.
I can get that clarification, but if you recall, there is a pending charge for a drug sale that eventually will hit the court with respect to the bartender. That despite the 2 o'clock time frame to quit selling alcohol, they continue to sell alcohol after the 2 o'clock hour. They created an atmosphere within the neighborhood that was just untenable for the neighbors. You asked what they can do with respect to towing their cars or everything. No parking signs were put up. Somehow miraculously, those signs were disappeared overnight. I'm sure it was not by the residents of that street. So at this point, I'm probably I should have by 10:30 the hours of calls. But if you remember the lieutenant's testimony that at times his entire shift is out there trying to deal with this establishment. I think they made a pretty compelling case upon what it's doing to the neighborhood, what it's doing to the city resources, how that affects other citizens throughout the city, because this is such a drain on resources for that precinct. So again, the decision is obviously yours. I know it's a drastic step, but I just ask you to consider all the testimony you heard from the officers, as well as the safety of the entire community, not just this bar and his patrons.
Yeah, but, public safety is very important, and also the residents. But at the same time, my question is just trying to be fair to the business owner. The arrest, has there really been any arrests? How many arrests, actually came out of there? That's my question at hand. And I do support the police department 100%. I do believe in public safety, but I also do believe in trying to just be fair. And, if there was any arrests made, I know you said it's one pending, but that's just one case pending. If out of 200 calls, how many actually came out of the club, or how many was any arrest came out of the club, and then was it an arrest out just in the parking lot?
I'll see if I can get that answer before 10:30.
Mr. President. Also, I know we talked about the parking signs, but from what I also heard is that we had police, off-duty police officers working, and I also heard, I can't remember his position, but he was speaking about undercover cops and situations taking place, that from a public safety hazard, it was cars that's blocked in, it was cars that's blocking entrance. Isn't that a public safety hazard, that alone by itself? If you got cars blocked in and you got cars blocking entrance, you don't have to have a no parking sign for a car to be towed.
From what the testimony is, you're talking, I think it's Tony's gas station where their cars are going in parking. The police do not have the ability to randomly go in there on private property and tow just for the sake it is private property. Tony or some proprietor of that establishment would have to call. Again, what you're talking about is, again, resources for that precinct being directed to one location night after night, causing a drain or strain for all other calls. I guess my question would be, how many resources do we have to expend so this business owner can stay in business? Because it is an issue with the neighbors.
No, I'm not. I'm because I'm for the neighbors as well, but I'm also for making sure that we implement everything to the same standard every time we're doing revoking a business or suspending a business, that we're doing the same thing. And when we go downtown Mobile, we tow cars. If it's Mardi Gras, we towing cars, and that deter people from parking in different places. And if we have police officers that are off duty, and they still, regardless if they're off duty, they're still required to serve, and they see a car's being blocked, an entrance being blocked that could potentially cause a problem issue, we can't pick up the phone and call a tow truck. That's what we're saying?
On private property? It's like if that's Tony's is private property. It has nothing to do with the Fat Tuesdays. It's across the street. If people go and park there, it would take the proprietor or Tony or somebody to say, hey, there's cars parked in my place, remove them.
So we talking about just Tony, but we're talking about, I'm not just hearing about Tony, but we're talking all the way down St. Stephen's Road.
And if the signs were in place, they could be towed. They could be ticketed and towed. However, the signs mysteriously disappeared after they were put up. And so again, now we're going to have to go back, expend more resources, putting up more signs, and hopefully that they're going to be there the following week.
So Rob, you telling me this? If someone come downtown, if a person pull up to a sign where it says no parking, and take the no parking sign down theirself, and then go away, that we can't call a tow truck to park it because they removed the sign themselves?
I would let Ricardo.
So there's two. So there's two distinctions. So think about this, okay? So what Director Lasky keeps talking about is the private property aspect, right? On private property, there's a different level of us as the government going on intruding. When we tow cars downtown, remember, it's on the right of way or on the street. So it's a different standard. We can always say, hey, we're cleaning this for public safety reasons. We can go on to public property and do so. So to answer your question, though, if they take the sign down on private property, you haven't given the proper warning, and we can't just go and do that. So they got to call us. They got to actively call us. Same way police just can't show up to our driveways and just tow cars.
No, I'm talking about the signs that we put up. We moved on to, we moved
Right.
from the private property. The signs that we put up, if someone comes and remove the signs, and then we know we put the signs up,
Right.
and they come remove the signs. We speaking downtown
Sure.
because I see all these signs up.
Sure.
I come down, I park my car, and I say, man, I'm gonna remove this sign so I don't get told. And then you put the sign up, an officer, anybody who downtown know they put the sign up. We can't call a tow truck.
We can call it.
We gotta catch the person.
Yes.
Unless the person takes the sign down.
Right.
You gotta catch them.
Right.
You know that you took it down.
I know,
But the car is still there.
but
Right.
I'm saying, so we don't tow that car. That's what I'm saying.
See, typically we shouldn't, or we should. But look, we should. I'm not saying we don't, but we should, because you have to give them adequate warning that they can't
Yeah.
park there.
So what is the warning process?
The sign. That's what you do.
I'm saying,
You-
so
Sign is the warning.
okay.
So
So
yeah.
after you do that, and the signs removed, it's nothing.
Well, we can put the sign back up, but think about it like this: it's an enforcement tool. You got to give them adequate warning. So, for instance, when you're driving down the street, if you don't see a stop sign, you don't stop. But if you see the stop sign, you stop. I can't have an officer issue you a ticket for something you didn't see. That's the thing. So it's still a safety issue, and we've got to do a better job with enforcement. But they have to have adequate warning, at least, that they can't park there. Because if it's a person that knows, we got to show that they knowingly broke the law, that their intent was there. It's not just that we get to just tell them that they did this. You can't just park there. That's arbitrary and subjective, and we can't necessarily prove that. Because the person goes in and says, hey, I didn't see the sign because there was no sign, then we can't show intent, and we can't show that there was notice. No different than if we say, hey, there's always been a stop sign there, but that stop sign gets blown down. You don't know there's a stop sign there, and you just go there.
I don't want to
And
keep
that's the
this
issue.
going on and keep asking questions because we just gonna keep going back and forth. But it just, to the point, what I'm saying is, it just seemed very challenging that we can't go. If I'm hearing, and let's remove private property. If you're blocking people on the road, on St. Stephen's Road, we can't talk.
If it's a
That's
public
different.
safety
If it's
issue.
a public safety
But
issue,
they
yes.
said that down there in the city council.
They said they were blocking.
Someone has to call.
Yeah, and say there was a
Someone
public
has
safety.
to call.
So
period.
the officer can't say that.
So right of entry is hard to prove. You hear me? Like, just say, for example, you own the club yourself, right? Somebody parks out on the median outside the property line, right? Or you're out at the fairgrounds, but you're not in the parking lot, but you park all the way down
Ziegler
Ziegler
Boulevard.
Boulevard doing. Let's use a good one that everybody's familiar with. That's been giving us hell, a spring fling, all right? And they park from the fairgrounds all the way down to Municipal Park, right? And it's illegal. People are blocked in that want to leave, but they can't leave. But the people in front of them are still at the spring fling. But they're sitting in their car getting mad. So how are they going to get out? It's no parking signs there, but the law says you're not supposed to be up there on the median anyway. So how do you handle that? See, that's what you're saying right now.
Yeah. that's what I'm saying.
So in essence, yes, they can be told, but somebody's got to call. But the people that are out there are not going to call because they're involved in the activities that are happening outside. Now, the property owner, because they own it, if they were to drive by and see it happening, oh, get these people off my property, they call, and it happens, and they can get them out of there. But the answer to your question is, if the people that are committing the atrocity are the ones that are actually parking there, why are they going to call anyway?
Unless maybe they're not
That's right.
causing any problems and they're just blocked in.
The
They
thing
need
that
to
we
get out.
did was put up the no parking signs, but however, Somebody bumped them, knocked them down, they went away. But you can't charge the person that's parking up there now because it might be somebody that just came in town from a year ago that knows nothing about it. So how are you going to say, okay, let's tow these people away, and they know nothing about it? And that's a issue that I had downtown when we stopped parking, had no parking downtown between certain hours. When people came back to town and said, well, that's never happened to me before. They didn't supposed to do that. And I'm calling Jim at 11 o'clock at night saying, I've got people that have been in Mobile all their lives and saying their cars got towed. Remember that? Same issue where we had to actually go help them get their car back because they didn't know the current law.
Just think about it, Corey.
Just think
During
about
Mardi Gras time, you see these yellow signs every few feet, every 2 feet, you see a yellow
Yeah.
sign. So
And
there
they
got to
gotta
be
be-
some type of warning mechanism out there to
And
warn the people.
The private property owner apparently doesn't have a problem with it because he needs to have a problem with it, and they need to put some signs in that somebody can't just pull up.
Well, the problem is if you go across the street,
Yeah.
then we're dealing with a commercially based property where those owners aren't there at that time of night.
Yeah, well,
There's
and-
one person that's
Yeah.
been adamant about
Yeah.
them parking on their property. But as you stretch down the street, going down towards Helena's and everywhere else and towards and towards whatchamacallits, there's just empty street when you make the turn going towards women and children. That's just commercial property that's not open at that time of night. But when you make the left turn going to Carver Homes, that's when you start blocking the people in their driveways. And they can call and say, I'm blocking
Yeah.
and come get this car out of my way. So yeah, one other thing, I sent a text just a second ago. I don't know if it went through yet. There was a previous business there by the name of 1608. I can't remember how we handled that. I'd like to see that. And then also, we had a major inference downtown at Atlantis that we had to handle. I don't remember how we actually handled that too. I need to see that, whether we suspended or had an immediate revocation. And those were both under you and I's time. So
Well, that's a lot.
I may ask that we hold it over just a week because I mean, there's no way, and I'm just going to be honest, there's no way I don't think that I could ask or recommend a fair curve at 10:30 just based on what you give me and have consensus from everybody between now and whatever,
Let's
based
just
on
hold it
whatever
over
you
for
give
1
me.
week.
So I'm going to ask probably that holds over 1 week and then we get a solid measure of what we actually need to do or can do.
So you're wanting to know the Atlantis and then the previous bar that was at
Yeah, it was
1608.
1608. I can't remember how we handled that, Jim. I mean,
Okay.
both of these were under you and I, and it was under
I know who it was.
right. And we need to go back. And then Fred had to shut the one down on Spring Hill Avenue.
Yes,
Right.
in Creighton.
And that's right. I'd like to see how we handled those. Those were really, really big. And if I look at those for a second, we could probably make a fair assessment of what we got to do.
Robert, are you tracking what they're asking for? Okay, I do want to address Corey, an officer can tow under certain situations without a sign. And that's if somebody blocks your driveway and leave the car there to where you don't have access to your own property, an officer can tow it at the property owner's request. The other one would be if it creates a hazard. If it parks on St. Stephen's Road and part of that car is in the lane of travel, that's a hazard. And the officer may remove it at that to protect people from running into a car. The other one would be if it blocks your line of sight to where you can't enter a roadway without hazard, the officer may tow it then. And even in those situations, because it's not marked, it's still appealable to the city clerk and the city council to decide whether that tow was appropriate.
But thank you, Chief. You
Yes,
answered
sir.
the question. And so I guess my concern is like, and this for like, if we need, what guidelines we need to make if we decide to give that to the business owner. If an undercover police officer is that, the owner has to, not undercover, but off duty. Does the owner have to give that to the off duty and say, you need to do this? Or as an off duty police officer, can they do that on their own if they see what you just said?
Well, and the way the rules are written, the off-duty calls an on-duty to come over there and actually execute the tow. The property owner may tow at his own. If somebody parks on your property off of the city right of way, the property owner has every right to have that vehicle removed from their property. But an officer cannot enter onto private property, even at your request, and tow a vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
And let me clarify something up. So we're two different things. The signs we're talking about, we're on the street behind, okay, blocks away from the establishment. Tony's is on the other side of the road, okay, which is private property. But the signs they pulled down that the street put up, okay, are not in the line of sight of the police officer working off duty at the establishment. They're behind in the neighborhood, and that's what's causing the problems.
It's Dunbar Street.
All right, Madam Clerk.
60, 1347, and 1348 are authorizing settlement agreement and release of claims. Ordinance is being introduced. 64054 is the conditional use permit for property at 2316 Hillwood Drive West. 60055 is considering the previously approved PUD at 550 Providence Park Drive East. 11056, amend Chapter 11, Article 3, Section 11 of the City Code to include subsection titled Alabama Construction Trade Academy Fund Fees.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ronald.
big day for us here in the city. You know, the good thing about coming off a campaign is you hear from everybody about what they want to see, you know, and everybody's got great ideas. Well, one of the things we heard is, man, we need to get our youth into trades. You know, the ones that want to go into trades, they need to go in trades. We've got this tremendous demand on jobs here in the city of Mobile. And fortunately, our partners at the Home Builders Association, they recognize that we need some additional workforce development opportunities for everyone, because, you know, their people are getting picked up to do bigger jobs, and everybody has to sort of level up. And I think the idea behind this academy is the people that are actually doing the jobs, the residential construction jobs, they recognize the need and they're willing to tackle it themselves. They just need a little help and participation from the city. So that's sort of the idea behind this Construction Trade Academy. We've got some representatives here, both from the state Home Builders Association as well as local. If y'all want to say a few words, just sort of tell us some of the successes we've seen in Huntsville and other places with this. It'd be awesome to hear from you. They presented to us once before and sort of laid it out.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. I'm Robert Collins, president of the HBF Metro Mobile. We've been seeing a pattern for decades that the skilled trades have been going to the wayside, basically. And the statistics now, for every 5 that leave, we're only gaining one potential person to fill that spot. So we have come together as a group and as an industry to try to rectify that and put it in place, a school to train people and get them on a fast track to give them a hand up. There's a lot of people that are out there that need some guidance and need a career other than just working jobs that typically is hard for them to provide for themselves and a family. Our program is a fast track. It's an 8-week class that will get people trained up. And what the number shows that it's equivalent to about 9 months of training for somebody that has not been in the industry before. That 8-week crash course will get them up and going in 8 weeks. It's 2 nights a week for 3 hours a night. So it's a really fast pace. Not only that, by going through that, we're seeing typically $3 to $5 more an hour when the employers are hiring them coming on. Also have worked it out with the state. So typically with the plumbing, to get your apprentice or journeyman's, you've got to work 2 years under a master plumber. So by going through this course, it's been approved that going through the course, which is 8 weeks, and working under a master plumber for a year, that constitutes and meets your requirement. So that in a year, you can meet that requirement, take your test. If you pass it, then you'll have your journeyman's, which is another increase in pay. So it's a fast track for everyone that is able to go through. And we've come up with ways with help with Huntsville, who's been doing this for 5 years. So we've got a lot of data from them that have helped they've kind of set the bar for how to do this.
You know, my name's Jason Reed. I'm with the State Home Builders Association. We passed the legislation that empowers cities and counties to levy the fee that'll be placed on our guys. Let me say this, every dollar that is collected goes to Treasury. It stays in Treasury. Every dollar that's collected goes back out. There are no administrative fees the state collects or the Home Builders Licensure Board. So it's a good win that the industry is supporting itself and supporting its workforce. There had been some questions about, well, if we collect money in Mobile, is it going to stay in Mobile? The bill was designed specifically for that. In any of the 67 counties, wherever the money is collected, that's where the money is to be spent. I think, sent a letter from our Home Builders Foundation committing to that. I think we're talking about doing an MOU to further define that, to show that that money will stay here. One of the beauties of the program is, you know, you're going to see a program like Huntsville, who's graduated about 650 people now. You're going to see one in Birmingham. They're building one in Montgomery right now. And of course, the one here in Mobile is a little bit ahead of everybody else. But what you're going to see are that these programs will be up and going. But if you have a community around here that's not big enough to support one, and I use Washington County, although, you know, we know there's not significant growth in Washington County, but let's say that somebody up there says, you know what, we're issuing permits. We want to apply a fee to help train our workforce. They can do that. Now, clearly, they'd never stand up one of these academies. They just wouldn't have the capacity to do so. So at that point, Mobile, they might say, well, hey, we want the folks in Mobile to run a satellite program for us. And at that point, they could request money from that county, but it's staying in that county. You see what I'm saying? This has to be budgeted and allocated to them. But we want to make sure that y'all are comfortable with where that money is and where it's going to go. But I think you're going to be happy once the program gets up. The track record shows well. You know, we looked at models all across the country and then landed on these, and they work. You know, and we're getting young men and women that, unfortunately, a lot of times they're not the kids in high schools. We're not competing with the trade schools. We're catching those kids that, unfortunately, and I say kids, you know, maybe people my age that are out there that they're undereducated. They have no opportunities, or they're looking for a new opportunity for a new career. And we want to help them find that. We want them to be in our industry.
Mr. President.
Mr. Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Thank you, Mr. Reed, for coming down. This is what we need. You know, this is opportunities for our young people in our community to learn a trade, a skill set. And sometimes people are good with their hands, and sometimes even just from the standpoint of we kind of push the 4-year university and they shut down, but giving them the opportunity to go into this academy. And I just want to thank you all for doing it, for putting this together. And I definitely support this initiative.
Thank you. Vice President.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you all coming and making the presentation. And thank you, Ben, for following through on that. Just a couple of questions to make sure everybody who is listening understands how it works, because you talk about levying our guys. So how are the fees levied? And then also, this is strictly residential, correct? It's not commercial. Okay.
Yeah, so it's strictly residential. The way the ordinance is written, it's up to $20 per permit. So it's a small fee to just assist with the school funding.
So when you pull permits to build a house or whatever, it's going to be included in that permit.
Correct.
And it goes back. Okay.
Mr. President.
Mr. Woods.
Thank y'all for bringing this. And again, this is something, I guess, about 3 months ago, might be longer than that. Whenever y'all brought this, excellent opportunity. And I do like the fact that, you know, there's several places all across our city that's training our teenagers, you know, high schools, juniors, seniors. But I do, not saying that this won't do that, but this does give other opportunities for our workforce to do that. And I think, just like looking over it and in preparation for understanding this, I think roughly between now and 2034, roughly 500,000 jobs in single family, multifamily residential construction is going to be opening up across the country. I know locally here, I lose team members to the industry quite often of just because there's so demand on it. And you know, this also gives the opportunity again to step in, not only train our youth, but also step in for somebody that's looking for a career change as well. So thanks for bringing this to us, and with your permission, I'd love to co-sponsor it with you, Mr. Reynolds.
I would like to join as a co-sponsor as well.
Yeah, I would like to follow behind my colleagues. Thank you all so much, for presenting this to us several months ago. And thank you also, Councilman Reynolds, for staying on top of this and everything. This is another great thing, that we're short of houses in this area. So I think this is another boost to help us to increase housing in our community and everything. Again, thank you all so much.
Thanks for hearing us. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Consent resolutions being introduced, 03-1351 and 1352. Reappoint Raymond Bell to the Water and Sewer Board of Commissioners and appoint William Petway to the Board of Adjustment. 09-1353, transfer funds from District 3 discretionary account to City of Mobile Event Services Department to assist with the Parade of Threes. 37-1354, 1355, and 1356 are recommending approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a restaurant retail liquor license to Bake My Day on Osho Road for issuance.
They're gonna like make my day.
Issuance of a restaurant retail liquor license to Demay's Taco Katina on Dolphin Street, and for issuance of a retail beer, table wine off premises only license to DIP Club Food Mart on Dolphin Island Parkway.
We'll hold it over for 1 week.
58-1357, declare weeds noxious, weed link group 1671, 60. 1358, approve a water special bonus to the firefighter of the month. 60, 1359, 1360, and 1361 are determining appropriations to Azalea City CDC, the Child Advocacy Center, and Mothers Involved Against Gun Violence serve a public purpose and approving payment. CIP resolutions being introduced, 21-1362, authorized contract with Amerson Roofing for Hillsdale Senior Center, roof replacement, $78,289. Resolutions being introduced for the first time, 08-1363, approve purchase order to Classic Paint and Body for wreck repairs to fire truck, $22,477.26. 09-1364, transfer funds from Build Mobile professional and technical account to grant project GHIST 023 for Alabama Historical Commission grant, $5,190.73. 09-1365, appropriate funds into the Rebuild Alabama Special Revenue Fund for the Tiger Broad Street Project, $1,400,000. 21-1366, authorized contract with Spire for marketing services for Parks and Recreation Department, $67,000. 21-1367, authorized contract with Mobile Arts Council for professional services for the design and production of a statue in memory of Jimmy Buffett, $20,000. 31-1368, authorized the filing of applications with Federal Transit Administration for assistance. We've been asked to table this one. Announcements.
I was looking back at resolution 09-1365, and this 1.4 is going towards the other end of Broad Street. And I was just thinking about that the mayor, I think he completely rebuilt several streets between Baltimore and Texas Street and now MLK and Broad Street. You sure you want to leave? You want to complete this project, man? All right. Vice President.
Yeah, the resolutions that are under 50,000, 08-1363, 64, and 67. Don't know if there's any interest in possibly one of the ordinances, waiving the rules on any of those. Maybe 11056, but up to you guys. Just leave them?
Just leave
Okay, all right.
Council,
Mr. President,
Mr. Pan.
I wanted to talk about the 21-1367, the Jimmy Buffett, not more about that, but it just made me think about the music scene in the city of Mobile. We had an opportunity to travel to Dublin, Ireland. And what I noticed about when we was there, it was music everywhere, like everywhere we went. And these people, they had these lanyards on. So I assumed that was something with the city that they were promoting. And we have so many great musicians that came from the city of Mobile. And I found out that Huntsville has an office of music. And that's something I just would like for us to kind of look into. I don't know how that works. So just something that we can kind of look into and just see how we can expand the music scene here in Mobile. But they have an office of music, and we have so many great legends that came from the city of Mobile for music. I think that could be some growth opportunities there. So if you could, let's kind of look at see what Huntsville is doing in that area. Thank you, Mr. President.
Question is, to your Councilman King, who you telling, because he on his way out, you know?
Oh.
One more meeting. man.
Well, listen, Mayor Stimson still have some influence.
We got one more meeting, man.
He still have a lot of influence, and so he's still here. I don't know what can happen in a week.
A lot can happen.
A lot could, as I heard on the radio this morning in his speech after the campaign, I think he and Spyro are supposed to be joined at the hip and meeting after meeting, and supposed to go through all the meetings together and join hands, and so that he could see what was happening and how it works and how the transition was going to be and what it was going to be like. But let me offer an option for you. The county commission, Merceria Ludgood, is redoing the Ace Theater. And in the Ace Theater, they're going to house the Excelsior Band and the history of the Excelsior. It would be a great project for you or whoever is going to be sitting in this seat to have a intergovernmental agreement with her so that the history of music in downtown could be housed at the same point and shared in that same facility, especially with the growth in which downtown is going, and especially what's going to be transformative on MLK as we redo that street. Now, you got to remember the area of Dublin we were in was purely a tourist area, so they're going to roll out the red carpet for everything that you saw. So music was everywhere, but that was great. But just know that the Ace Theater is coming back in a big race place to possibly have a shared agreement with the Office of Music inside of it.
And other council members. Mayor.
I'm sitting here listening to the conversation about the club and what's going on there. You know, I was sitting there asking myself, is there any question in my mind or in your minds that there's egregious behavior and that this has been going on for a while? One of the biggest challenges that we have from a policing standpoint is trying to make sure that we always talk about de-escalation. You know, you don't want to get into a situation where all of a sudden something bad is going to happen. All right. And so visualize yourself as a city councilor. You're one of maybe one or two or three policemen there. You're in a situation where there are hundreds of cars or 50 cars, whatever it is. People are drinking in the parking lot. They've been drinking for we don't know how long. We've already had a situation where shots have been fired. Okay, we've had a situation where cars been urinated on. So the behavior is being changed by the alcohol consumption. So my concern is that, you know, are we trying to say that we should have towed 6 cars, or are we going to be satisfied when we towed 10, or are we going to be satisfied when a policeman gets shot or we have an officer involved shooting? Any of those situations, the officer involved shooting or an officer getting shot is just something that all of a sudden we have lost control. Okay, and we're going to have to deal with the aftermath of it. We're asking our policemen already to do a whole lot. And even though they're off duty, even though they're sworn officers, you know, there's certain guidelines they'll do, but also from a common sense standpoint, there are certain things that I don't care if you're an individual and you're looking at a situation that could get out of hand. You know, prudence tells you I should probably do this rather than that. Now, I don't know how much more information you really need, you know, to make a decision. But every week that goes by that we don't do something, I think that you're putting citizens at risk as well as our police at risk. So as far as the protocols of what we've done in the past, yes, we want to probably do things like we've been doing it in the past, but sometimes you have to set precedents if the situation warrants it. So please consider that.
Anything else from the administration? All right, we'll see you guys at 10:30.
Hey, TJ, I'm going to do a moment of silence for Matt Metcalf.
Okay, also probably former chief of police too, Michael Williams.
He does?
Yeah.
Last week.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, because I always call him Tyrone.